And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Jimbo is out at A&M, but dude, what is going on?
Not the week that I thought that it was going to happen. I really, truly thought that this was going to come after a bad loss, but picking it after a 51-point game against Mississippi State, I know it's Mississippi State. Interesting timing.
Technically, let's call it what it is. He got fired after Ole Miss because the Board of Regents met on Thursday. Yeah. Hey, can we make this move? Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, which has a little bit of poetic justice to it, as much as Lane has taken shots at Texas A&M, has a little bit of poetic justice that they met the week after the loss to Ole Miss. Now, I mean, look, we'll go into this. Obviously, Jimbo being fired is a massive story. Who do they go get next? Because if you're going to spend, Joe, they're spending $76 million for Jimbo not to coach. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I tweeted this out. I don't care what you would say about me. If I'm Jimbo, I don't care what you would say about me. I got $75 million coming to me. Yes. Okay, you can call me a clown all you want to, but you know what? I got $75 million in the bank, bro. I wouldn't do a damn. That's well past generational wealth, dude.
Somebody tweeted, and I thought it was hilarious. I forget who it was, that Jimbo's going to use that money, go buy some repossessed house from an Italian oligarch, and put a Traeger grill in the front lawn in somewhere in like Vienna, Italy, something like that. He's gonna go to some remote location and just live it up.
Jimbo, that ain't Jimbo. Jimbo's gonna buy another ranch. He's gonna do whatever he wants to do. Good on him, man. I mean, look, it's not his fault they made a bad deal, right? Like, it's not his fault that A&M made a bad deal. He just accepted the bad deal, and so he's fired. Now we'll talk. Ross Bjork had a press conference today. Texas A&M's AD. We'll talk about that a little bit, and some more people that we think, Joe and I think, could be leading. Joe said he's got one off the wall that nobody is thinking about. Of course, Joe's coming out of left field.
Oh, I got a terrible one. I can't wait to share it on this show. I cannot wait to share it.
What a troll.
Wait, it's not a troll. It is not a troll move. It's not a troll move. I think that with what they did when they hired Jimbo, this person's name deserves. It's not all out of complete left field. I found it in an article. I was reading a couple different articles, and his name was at the bottom of it. I think it's a long shot, but it's worth discussing.
All right, we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Also, Harbaugh suspended. I got to admit this, and I'm gonna be careful with my words, but I have not been on necessarily Harbaugh's side on this one. I think it's really well documented, Joe, when we've talked about this. But do you know how big of a coward you got to be to suspend him while he's mid-flight in the air?
Well, and then to do it on a day where it's a national holiday. So then for them to file some sort of a counter motion, they had the temporary restraining order. They tried to file that. Couldn't get it in time because it was on a national holiday. It is really a bit of a cowardly move. It completely is a cowardly move.
Cowardly move. So I'm even though I do think Harbaugh should face something, okay? I'm not saying this season. I'm not saying they should have done it this year. All I'm saying is I have come down pretty hard on Harbaugh and Michigan in this situation. Today, Tony Petitti, you're up, okay? Because that is – Joe, I got to be real with you. That is something I never thought I would see in my lifetime is all the public pressure that he was receiving. Now, again, let's not mistake. I don't necessarily hate the action. I hate how they delivered the action because I do think that they have enough to suspend him. I think that they have enough, okay? And the NCAA will move way too slow on this. And look, you could have a Pete Carroll type of situation on your hands. Pete USC let the NCAA, do their investigation. They were taking a long time. Pete tried to go for another national title and then left for the NFL, and nothing came to him. And literally nothing came to Pete Carroll. So I get there being action, but man, what a this has been the wildest weekend I can remember in a while.
Yeah, there's so much going on that we had to start the show 30 minutes before we typically do because there's so much to talk about. We'll get into the Harbaugh thing. I do agree with you that the timing of it is soft. And I'm going to reiterate this when we do recap the Michigan-Penn State game. Don't bet against a galvanized team. Do not bet against a team that they feel everyone is against them and they're a strong and competitive and physical football team. They will find ways to motivate themselves. Harbaugh will probably be back on the sideline for the rest of the season because this thing is going to go to court. But I'm telling you right now, do not bet against a galvanized, motivated team. Laugh at them all you want. Laugh at the Sharon Moore reaction and what he said in that post game and them wearing all the hats and the shirts and Michigan versus everybody. They're motivated. Them and Georgia are the two most motivated teams in the country, and they're going to continue to run the table.
Can I be honest with you? I don't buy that. I don't buy it because they've been motivated since week 1 when Harbaugh got suspended.
Well, now there's extra motivation. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
It might help you for a quarter, but that team has no. I don't know if Michigan can win anymore. I don't know.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know if they can beat Ohio State.
I will save thoughts on that. I will save thoughts on that. I won't jump to that.
All right, that's not all. Here are the games that we'll talk about. Michigan and Penn State, Georgia and Ole Miss. What a splattering that was. Joe, I should have just stayed with my gut. By the way, you lead now in our pick'ems.
Oh, dude, I didn't even tally them up. Oh, Blake. I'm going to shit my pants this week. Just watch. Just watch.
You always shit your pants. But 4 months ago, I came on this show and took a shot in the dark and said Missouri would be the second team in the East. Now, it's not completely over with, but I should have stayed with my pick. I stupidly went with Tennessee, and then that flipped that hierarchy in picks. I am down 1. You are now +1. Ooh. We'll talk Utah and Washington and that Missouri-Tennessee game. So we have a lot that we have to get into here, Joe.
Yep.
Let's waste no time in doing it. We got any super chats? No super chats. Okay. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those social media groups. If you're on Facebook, subscribe if you are on YouTube. Joe, pushing up to that 200,000 views on YouTube.
We're getting there. We're about to have a 200,000 view month, man. We're like
200,000
right month. There.
Don't forget. I know some of you hate Joe's absolute guts, especially if you're from Alabama. By the way, I had a buddy of mine who I've known for probably 13 years, big Alabama fan. Okay. He texted me on Friday. He said, "Who in the outright is Joe DeLeone?" And I said, okay. He's a great guy. And he goes, "I think he's a piece of." And so, with that being said, Adam,
everyone asks the same question. Who the hell is Joe DeLeone? I ask myself that same question every night when I go to bed. It's a great question.
All right, we got a lot to get into. We don't have time to waste. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the show, there is a Heisman front runner.
You'll hear my thoughts.
I swear to God, Joe.
You'll hear my thoughts.
Swear to God. If you don't say he's leading the Heisman ticket, I will fly to California and slap you.
See, well, you'll hear what I have to say, but you're making me not want to say what I want to say because of the way that
I peer pressuring you?
I won't be strict. I was fully ready to make a statement, but you're kind of strong-arming me here a little bit. Now I think I might go with Bo Nix. I might have to go with Bo Nix and just ride with that, like I said last night, because he looked really good last night.
You ride things? Of course you ride things.
All right. Hit the brake.
Let's talk about our good friends. Oh, and by the way, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. We got a lot to discuss. Joe, I'm excited about this episode. It's going to be so fun. Don't go anywhere. We're back next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events. with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Joe, what was the biggest upset for you yesterday?
Biggest upset for me yesterday. Oh my God, dude, the Oklahoma State game. Oh my God, dude, that game pissed me. I got sucked in so hard on that, man. I got
sucked in hard, huh?
I knew you were going to say something. 45-3. That without a doubt.
Blanked. And
that was pathetic, man. What the hell, Gundy?
And you know what? I got ridiculed, even though I stuck up for Oklahoma State all this time. They hated me. That's what you get. Gus Malzahn, man. Don't sleep on Gus Malzahn. All right. It's not what we're here to talk about. We got a lot. His name could be up in the fold to this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Wouldn't be shocked either. All right. Today, Texas A&M fired longtime head coach. I guess maybe not longtime head coach, but it felt like Jimbo was there for a while. But Jimbo Fisher was fired today. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. Paid $76 million not to be there. AD Ross Bjork came up with some comments. Joe, I know that you can read them, but I'm just summarizing here, saying that we felt like we weren't moving in the right direction, that things had been stale, and that we had to make a move. I agree with him. Joe, 2 weeks ago on the show on a Sunday, I came out here and said, Joe, I'm done. When they lost to Ole Miss, I came out here and said, I'm done. Actually, it might have been last week. I'm done if I'm them. And I, as an LSU fan, would want to say, hey, keep him. But when we talk about taking the bias out of the show, they had to let him go. Now, a lot of people questioned if A&M would pull the trigger with that massive amount of money and a massive buyout. Yeah, they would. And yeah, they did. Because I do think at the end of the day, they had to, because of the way that they were spiraling down. Kevin Sumlin got fired for less than some of this stuff, right? Like, I mean,
yes.
Yeah, he had some issues. Yeah, there was a lot of turmoil there at the end, the letter and racism and all that kind of stuff that we're not going to get into. But on the field, he had a worse record than Kevin Sumlin did. Jimbo did not adapt with the times. And I think this is a case in point. If you don't adapt, you will die. And you know what else, Joe? In the new era of NIL, this fan base, to their credit, this booster base, to their credit, you wanted to spend money to go get the top recruits in the country. You got the best recruiting class maybe ever, and you didn't do anything with them, okay? Now Jimbo Fisher is out. Look, maybe the timing is – a lot of people thought they would wait until the end of the season. Doesn't matter. They spent the money. And look, they're going to be $100 million plus into this buyout, going in buying out another coach that would be worth a damn and bringing him in. They did it, and look, hats off to them, because when you got to make a massive move like that, you got to make a massive move. I think it's the best thing for their program moving forward. I thought it always was, and they could, if they make the right hire here, make some waves now with the new SEC and new college football coming into these next couple of years.
Plain and simple, the one thing that I said in the preseason why I really thought that this firing was going to come, you could really see from the outside looking in, without any sourcing, without any information, that he had no control over this locker room last year. It was very apparent that these guys were doing whatever they wanted. The guys on the team were not bought into what Jimbo was selling, and they were there because of the NIL money that had incentivized them to be there.
Yeah, character was not a thing that they looked for in recruiting. It was all stars and talent.
that was clearly the biggest downfall that we don't really see at other top programs. Yes, they go and attract the top five star recruits, but A&M did not clearly do an effective job of evaluating the character of these kids that they brought in, because I believe there's 2 kids now that have transferred to other schools and have not really either seen the field or have left the programs
Chris
that they've
Marshall
transferred
and
to.
Denver Harris being the 2 5-stars that have not, that it has happened to.
Exactly the point. Jimbo, I don't think is a bad coach, but I really think that extension, he was kind of coasting a little bit. He wasn't really giving us the same level of impact that he had at Florida State. He was not that same guy that he was at Texas A&M. Of course, when you pay a guy $100 million, he's not exactly going to be the most motivated and the best. What's the word I'm looking for here? Again, he's not the most impactful coach that he could have been for this Texas A&M program. Again, not shocked. Was not shocked by this. I said this in the offseason that he was going to get fired, and there was not enough of a forward progression for anything to change. What maybe would have helped is if Connor Weigman wasn't hurt, but there clearly were just so many other outlying issues.
Well, look, I don't know if Weigman not being hurt, they beat Ole Miss, because, and I know A&M fans will push back on that, okay? But the bottom line is Jimbo's going to find ways for you to lose games, and he's done that his whole career. Joe, he's averaging losing, okay, about 3 SEC games and an 8-game schedule per year. He's been 5-3. They've been historically 8-4 in his tenure. The COVID year really hurt A&M because he goes 8-1, 9-1, whatever it was, and they give him a massive extension. And look, I feel this way about A&M. When you're able to go out and spend $75 million for a guy not to coach, and do what they did in recruiting, if a right dude gets in there, they can make some crap happen, right? Like if a guy can come in there and be innovative offensively, run or hire a good defensive staff. Hell, his name's Dan Lanning. Now, I know that the fan base over there really wants Dan Lanning. Like I've seen a lot of them on Twitter. That's their guy. But Jimbo just didn't adapt. It's not that he didn't have the talent. Like you look along that defensive line and you could tell, like, look, man, I know your secondary is not up to par. Okay, I know you have some young offensive linemen, but there's no reason that with the resources that you have, you should lose to teams like Ole Miss. None. Zero.
I think to elaborate on what you're talking about, not adapting to the times, it's not the Dabo Sweeney impact, the issue that we talked about with him where he's not going into the portal, blah, blah, blah. His issue was that last year he was calling an archaic offense that was not modernized, that was not up to modern standards of college football, and was redundant. It was incredibly redundant. He brought in Bobby Petrino. And one of the things that we talked about so much during this offseason with Petrino is how much free reign is Petrino going to get? And I'd be willing to bet that we could find out by asking Petrino, now that this thing has collapsed, that Jimbo probably had a pretty strong hold on things. I would be willing to bet that he was.
I don't know. They
micromanaging.
They opened it up a little bit differently. They didn't
a little bit differently though. I just don't feel like how much better was that offense really? This final year,
last year.
Yeah,
light years.
Well, that was because there's no Haynes King, but
see, here's the thing. Are you watching Haynes King at Georgia Tech?
Well, we saw how he played yesterday. He did not play very good yesterday.
Okay, fine. I digress. He's better at Georgia Tech this year than he was at any point under Jimbo.
Good point. It's a fair point.
Okay, so
yes.
My point is, okay, when I look at them, there's no reason whatsoever that they should be losing games like that. Here's the truth. They should be up there with the top in the SEC, and I'm going to throw in Texas and Oklahoma here, okay, because they're coming into it. They should be in there with Texas, Oklahoma. They should be in there with LSU, Alabama, Georgia. They should be because they have just as much, if not more, resources than every single one of those programs, okay? It's a good thing if you're A&M today. To be honest with you, I know that it looks chaotic. It feels chaotic. You should be celebrating a little bit. And I know it's tough when you got to go through a coaching regime and a coaching hire. I know it's tough. And you got to make the right choice here. Now, I will admit, Ross Bjork is not a bad AD.
No.
He's pulled some big-time coaches before, okay, especially in baseball. Now, a lot of people won't understand that. Going and getting Jim Schlossnagle from TCU to go to A&M is a big deal. It's a massive deal. The right coach will see that place, okay, and say to themselves, I can win there. Now, to flip the script, Jimbo is out. Who are some guys that you look to that could potentially get this job?
My number one is, without a doubt, I think it's Mike Elko. The fact that he was already there, he was the defensive coordinator there, and then we see the success defensively that he's having right now here with Duke. I was saying this to you before the show. Oftentimes when teams in the NFL, in college football, they go through a coaching change, it's very similar to when a guy goes through a breakup. Who they end up going to next is usually the complete opposite of the previous person that they were dating. And in this circumstance, you usually go with a really different coach than the one that you had before. And I think that Mike Elko, going from an offensive-minded guy in Jimbo Fisher to Elko, who's very defensive focused, he has the mentality of what we know is working right now in college football, which is building up front on your defensive line, on your offensive line, and running the damn football. I think that Mike Elko is the perfect candidate. And I think for me, he is the number one guy that you have to go after. You need somebody that's, one, been around the program, and two, understands the importance of the program.
I think Mike Elko could, I'm not going to say he's my number one choice for them, because I do think that you got to go make a massive hire. And I don't know if Elko could take them places that they have not been. Look, they have not won a national title since the 1930s. I am not 1,000% sure the places that they want to go that Elko can lead them there. Now, I do agree with you in this. And by the way, Joe, Georgia is running some of the same exact stuff that A&M is. Georgia goes under center just as much as A&M does. It's not an excuse. Okay, Jimbo did not develop. The difference with that is Elko has. And Elko has been under good coaches before. Even if you want to throw Jimbo in there, he's been under Brian Kelly. He's got a massive line and tenure of guys that he's been under, defenses that he's coaches. He's on that list for me. Is Dan Lanning available?
I really do not. And I tweeted this, and it's getting a little bit of traction from Oregon fans. I really do not see a world where Dan Lanning leaves. And of course, I'm sure this can get clipped. And then eventually when Dan Lanning takes the job, people can go and run with it. But
you mean like the way that Miami fans got on you about Tyler Van Dyke?
Right, exactly, which was fun to recount yesterday. But here's what the way that I look at this. His name is going to go run rampant. His agent, Dan Lanning's agent, is going to let it run rampant. He just took an extension last year, and I think that now there is even more leverage, assuming that they run the table, finish with 2 losses or however Oregon finishes, and then go to Phil Knight and then turn this around into a massive long-term deal and a commitment to give him even more NIL money than he's probably already getting. There is a position for him at Oregon to continually grow and develop that. He also doesn't have any ties to any programs. This isn't like Mario Cristobal leaving for Miami, where he was a player at Miami and he played there, and the last time that they were really good. Dan Lanning played at like a Division II school or something like that. I think he's from, I forget exactly where he's from. I'm going to check it in a second, but he doesn't have ties to an SEC program. He doesn't. It would behoove him to stay at Oregon.
By the way, did you see that Wikipedia already's been changed? It says that Dan Lanning's he's the current head coach at Texas A&M. Look it up right now. Actually, I could probably show you, but
that's so lame. What smartass did that? That's so lame.
I mean, it's so funny that people are already saying that he's the new head coach at Texas A&M. Look,
he's from Missouri, though. He's from Missouri, and he played at William Jewell, so he's got no connections anywhere.
Well, that's why I was looking. I didn't know where he was from. I wanted to see if there was any tie there. Look, let me say this. Okay, I agree that Mike Elko should be on that list. But Joe, is money a real option here for A&M after you just spent $75 million? Because you knew what you had to do. Now, here's another thing. The first thing when I woke up this morning and started seeing some of the rumblings, and then finally Billy Lucci at Texags was the one that broke the story, I literally asked myself the question, do you make that move if you don't have your dude? Do you pay $75 million if you don't have your guy? I don't know if they do. Now, I do believe that they could. okay, if it gets to the point where they are right now. But I do think that they might have their guy. Here's Dan Lanning is intriguing to me. I do agree with you because if they wind up running the table and then they get into the playoff, A&M's going to be waiting a little bit for him, okay, to then go to Texas A&M. It could change some things if he gets into the playoff. I'm going to throw a wild card at you. Now, this happened, and we talked about it in the pre-show, okay? We had to go and find, or I went and found when I said this. 2 weeks ago to the day, or a week ago to the day, okay? Ole Miss lost to Texas A&M, and I asked you, okay, at the end of that clip, what would happen if Jimbo got fired and Lane Kiffin became the new dude?
That would be so goddamn funny.
Well, now here's even what's more funny. Okay, at the end of the game last night, after the outright splattering that Georgia put on, okay, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin was in his post-game press conference and said, "We have to be able to recruit better. We're not getting the athletes here." And I do think that aggravates him enough. Now, I don't know if they buy him out. I don't know how all that would go. This is way too early. But I do think that that's really interesting that he said that. What a crazy turn of events that would be if Lane Kiffin would be the next head coach of A&M.
Here is the one thing, and this is one I've been racking my brain on. You just it's on every list. It's on every freaking list that's out there right now. And you just kind of go, maybe. But I think that the reality why this is, I would think, the most likely of any of these options here is because he's done this before. He has bailed on another team after a couple of years of building him up. He has just dipped. He did this to go to USC. I don't think that he would hesitate to do this. I really don't. Come on. He's done it before. Out of any of the coaches that we could bring up, he's got the track record on bailing on a team to just go to the next job.
It would be also money. So here's the thing with Lane. They're getting sued for $40 million. Okay. And they have that lawsuit. Lane really want to leave right now?
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Does he really want to leave? I mean, because here's
it's brought up in court too, because then the counters, the lawyers who are bringing this up could say he clearly doesn't care about the kids.
Would Ole Miss fight for him?
No. Well, then, I mean, could
Texas
A&M then promise to?
Oh, they get every lawyer in the state of Texas to go fight for Lane if that happened.
Oh my God.
Here's a guy that I think is a sleeper that I really think needs to get a look here. I know that Kansas has not. A lot of people have not been looking at them. Lance Leipold would do some absolutely unbelievable things at A&M. Now, it wouldn't be the big-time name that everybody wants. Lance Leipold is a dude, and he would get that program going in the right direction. Look what he's doing at Kansas. He's not on anybody's list, but if I'm A&M, Lance Leipold would be a guy that I would absolutely talk to and see if he'd want this job.
I like the Leipold name thrown in there in the mix for this one because you look at their situation. They need somebody who can build the groundwork, can slowly build this thing up to a successful position. And you look at his track record. He was at Wisconsin Whitewater, turned them into a powerhouse. I believe it was Wisconsin Whitewater. And then he went to Buffalo, turned them into a competitive MAC team, and then ends up at Kansas now, where if it wasn't for a quarterback injury yesterday, they'd be the second, third best team in the Big 12 right now. So I think that one is a really good one to bring up because it fits their needs exactly. It's been said that he doesn't want to leave Kansas, but that's hearsay. Every coach says that they don't want to leave so that they have leverage.
If he's getting paid
anything,
$40 million more to go to Texas A&M, he will leave Kansas.
Right.
Okay.
I want to throw out my second one here.
All right.
I tweeted, this guy's name hasn't been brought up once. Eli Drinkwitz. Why hasn't Eli Drinkwitz's name not been brought up? Look what he's done at Missouri, which
he would not fit Texas.
Why do you think that though? Regionally, it's not far from Missouri. I know I'm kind of making an assumption.
It's not a regional thing. It's a fit. He does not fit the state of Texas.
You think that some of the other candidates we've brought up would fit better than Lance Leipold?
I
just look at what he's done, man.
I think Lane would get a pass, and I think Lane's weird enough, okay, because Lane is out there and he'd bring attention, and there's a lot of weird shit that happens at A&M. I think he'd be a pass. But there's not another coach that we named that would not be a fit. Eli Drinkwitz, to me, does not feel like a fit. Is that your one out of left field?
No. I got one that's way worse than this. Wait,
Okay.
but I want to talk about this for just a quick second though before we move on. I get what you're saying that like personality wise, it doesn't exactly. You can kind of not feel it, but when you're trying to do something different and change up the culture, you sometimes have to go in a completely different direction. I think he should be considered because we look at right now, Missouri's one of the. I don't know, dude. I think that he's really built that program up.
He has, but it's not happening. A&M won't allow that to. You don't pay $75 million in buyout money to go get Eli Drinkwitz.
All right, that's a fair point. All right, here's
what's your off the wall one because we got to get rolling here.
Dabo. I'm dead serious. He is in a position where he is griped nonstop about the fan base at Clemson. He suddenly is seemingly way more happy all of a sudden. Maybe these conversations have been having, Blake. Now it's totally conspiracy theory. That's total hearsay. But what I'm getting at here, now is the time to go and do that if you're Texas A&M. You really want to fix this damn thing? Go get Dabo. Go pay him whatever money because he's won national championships. That would be a total Texas A&M move to go offer him an insane amount of money to take over this program. I think that would be something that Texas A&M would do. I do not think it is at all not possible.
I hate that so much.
But you know I'm right that that's actually like the A&M fans absolutely think that that's possible. And the boosters, I bet, think that's possible.
I do think Dabo would listen. I don't know if he would leave because here's another thing. How much is his buyout? He's getting paid $11 million a year. Here's another thing, too. I think Dabo's going to sink. If he does not go into the portal, he's going to sink. I just don't know if Dabo, again, is a dude with what's going on right now. Did they wind up winning yesterday? I think they won.
Yeah, they dismantled Georgia Tech. Yeah.
I just can't – I can't see Dabo making that leap. Now, I think – that there are some good coaches that you could possibly say that we're not mentioning here, all right? I just don't know if Dabo would leave Clemson. He's been at Clemson longer.
Everyone said that about Brian Kelly. But no one thought Brian Kelly was going to leave. Brian Kelly was literally the perfect man for Notre Dame. It was an Irish guy from Ohio. And LSU convinced him to come. Oh, he's from Boston, but he coached in Ohio for a very long time.
Yeah, but the problem with that one is that Notre Dame and Brian Kelly, he was fighting with the administration, and it was pretty well public, and he had talked about it. And Dabo's not fighting with the AD.
He's fighting with the fan base, though.
Yeah, but fighting with the fan base and fighting with the administration are two completely different things. Let me tell you something. So for example, I don't think that compares because Brian Kelly is about to fire his DC, and LSU will pay whatever they got to pay to win. Notre Dame will not. You had a chance to go get Andy Ludwig, and you didn't.
Okay.
I thought
he's been very verbal, though, about his frustration with the way that the fans have treated him. And I think that if there was a time, I bet there's at least a conversation that happens.
Michael in the chat said, what about Glenn Schumann, the DC at Georgia?
That's one I've seen. I think that would make a ton of sense. I mean, if you can't get Dan Lanning, you might as well go get the guy who replaced Dan Lanning.
Very true. Two super chats here, both from Michael Morris. He said Les Miles could do more with A&M than Jimbo could. Well, he just run, toss, dive, and play good defense. Look, people, crap on Les Miles a lot, but he did win a lot of football games. He also said Matt House at Texas A&M, LSU will pay him to do so.
I mean, they'll be really good at defense if they go and get.
No, they'll be horrible at defense. They would squander a Heisman contenders national title is what they do. Thank you, Michael, for both the super chats. But Joe, that's not the only coaching news that we had. We got to get to into some of these games here. Okay, but I want to quickly hit on this Harbaugh thing. Let me start off by saying this as we turn the page here. In case you missed it, on Friday, the Big Ten came down with a notice in reference to Jim Harbaugh being suspended for the remainder of the 3 games in the regular season. While they did that, Michigan, and everybody knew that Michigan would be in flight. Pete Thamel reported that they would be in flight, and the Big Ten came down with a ruling. The pictures came out on social media, Joe. As soon as Harbaugh gets off the plane, he's met by Michigan officials who are telling him that he's been suspended for the remainder of the regular season. I do think that something had to be done, okay? I think that there was way too much evidence in reference to what Michigan has done. Now, I know that there are reports out there that other teams were doing it, and I know that Michigan also said that, well, other teams were doing it too. The problem with all of this is I don't have the smoking guns for these other programs like I do for Michigan. Why not leak it to Pete Thamel? Why not give Pete Thamel some of the evidence that you gave to the Big Ten? You're giving it to the Big Ten, but you're not leaking the stuff that other people have leaked on Connor Stallions and yourself. The play sheet, the audios, the FBI investigation. There's a lot that's going on that just because other teams are doing it, okay, does not stop the fact that Michigan got caught red-handed. That's not where I'm going here. Okay. I get that there's still enough, but to suspend the man when you're still collecting data and you're still collecting evidence, and then to be an outright coward that you are, Tony Petitti, and to do it on a national holiday on Veterans Day and do it while the man is in transit, in flight to Happy Valley, Joe, that rubs me the wrong way. Pause, but it rubs me the wrong way. The Big Ten shows that you are nothing but cowards for doing that. Like, that's a cowardice move. So I don't like how the Big Ten handled this. You should have given the man at least the rest of the regular season, okay? If he goes, he goes. But then you could suspend Michigan. You could do something else to Michigan. The only thing, Joe, and I think Reese Davis illustrated this perfectly. You know what gets coaches' attentions? It's not suspended games. You know what it is? Recruiting.
What?
Okay? But I think that it was mishandled a little bit here. What did you think about the Harbaugh? What do you think about the Harbaugh suspension?
Well, we all know that I'm one of the few people willing to say that I think that any type of suspension I think is completely ridiculous because of, I know that you think that there is no smoking gun, but the fact that they're able to come forward with information that other teams are not only doing what they're doing, but also colluding with one another to share information. It's just a matter of which that they gathered the information that has been considered to be such an egregious act. But as what you're saying here, I think, and I still stand by, and I've said this throughout the whole process, suspending him during the season is a ridiculous action to take when there is not a proper investigation that can properly go through. There still needs to be a full comb over before you can jump to a conclusion. I think that Petitti let the pressure from the other teams get to him. I will say this, though, and I tweeted this out. I feel as though that this is merely just a posturing move by Petitti, which the whole thing is I don't want to say it's cowardice, but it's lame the way that he's handling it. He drops the big suspension so that Harbaugh is not able to coach against Penn State, and then he knows that restraining order comes through. There's going to be another lawsuit, and that is going to allow Harbaugh to get back onto the field until said court case is completed and it's done. That allows Petitti to appease the other teams in the conference for yelling at him for demanding that Harbaugh get suspended. And then on the flip side of things, it enables Michigan to still have Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. It's just like a total non-move by the conference. It's a complete non-move. It's stupid. It's not. He didn't do anything.
It's not a non-move. Let me tell you why. They're admitting that he has guilt.
Michigan's admitting, or
no, the Big Ten. They're admitting that he has guilt. When you suspend him, and until you come down with an outright ruling, you are basically suspending him. Okay, without any proper ruling. Well, then make a ruling then.
Right. That's what I'm. Yeah.
They're suspending him because we need to collect more information. We're going to go ahead and suspend him. But it has nothing to do with suspending him. If you would have come out and said, we are suspending him until further notice because of the evidence that we have now, would hit so much differently than the way that Tony Petitti legitimately did it. Like, you're doing that to take a shot at Harbaugh. You're doing that to take a shot at the administration of Michigan. Okay, not thinking about the kids, not thinking about the players, not thinking about anybody else besides yourself. And again, I said this when this man was fired, and you disagreed with me. Okay, well, he's a TV guy. He helps the Big Ten get into the next generation of TV. It never fucking matters, okay, when you have a TV guy who does not know what to do in these situations. You know who would not do that move?
Who?
Greg Sankey would
Blake,
never
we can't compare Tony Petitti to Greg Sankey.
They are the second best conference in the country. He has to put his foot down and stop being a little bitch and saying, oh, well, everybody's yelling at me. Let me just suspend him on a national holiday. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's a bitch move.
Because this is an incredibly complex situation to go through in your first year as a commissioner. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm not giving him a pass or anything, but to compare him to Greg Sankey, who's the best commissioner in college football, I understand that they deserve to be compared.
Know what? Greg Sankey's been commissioner. He's been a commissioner of 4 other leagues before he got to the SEC.
Who else should they have hired, though? There's not many other good options.
To do that. You mean to tell me that there's not a dude that as an assistant to Greg Sankey that's been under him for 15 years that could take that role?
Okay, you know what the counter, if the SEC ever went and hired somebody who was an assistant to a great Big Ten commissioner, the counter argument would have been that person doesn't know Southeastern football. So the same thing applies here, that the argument could be made. Why would we go hire somebody that doesn't have a familiarity with the market?
A TV guy. He's a TV guy.
He's also a former lawyer. You think that he doesn't know what he's doing? That's my whole question about this whole thing. This whole decision that he made and the action that he made is a total freaking lawyer move. It's a lawyer political move. That's why I don't agree with it. I think that it is a completely soft decision for him to do what he did.
Then what are you arguing about?
I just don't think it's fair to give him criticism when he's been there for a few months, and this is the most complicated cheating scandal that's ever happened. Nobody would handle this properly. And
it's not the biggest. It's
one of the biggest. One of the biggest cheating scandals. One of the biggest on-field cheating scandals.
Fair. It is one of the bigger ones, but it's not bigger than Penn State.
No, that's a completely different monster.
Sure.
Let me ask this: do you think Greg Sankey would, in his first few months as the commissioner of the SEC, you think you would have trusted him?
You know what it was called? Hugh Freeze. Hookers and cocaine on campus with a cell phone.
How long did he let that play out, though? How long did he let that investigate? Did he suspend him in the middle of the season?
No, he didn't.
I don't think it's fair to criticize him.
On campus. What's worse, sign stealing or hookers and cocaine?
Hookers and cocaine. Obviously, hookers and cocaine, because that is cut and dry. That is so obvious.
All right, something was cut.
That is so blatantly obvious.
Cut.
There's no conversation that needs to be had. Was that wrong that he had hookers and cocaine in the team facilities and on recruiting idiots? No one had to have this conversation, but it is an ambiguous topic of if what Michigan did was necessarily as illegal as what other teams do, just because what they did was illegal per the specific rules of the rule book. But other variations of what they do is considered not illegal. Oh, God, that was probably one of the better quotes that we've had on this show.
I can't look at you.
That was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. I can't maintain a serious.
I mean, so look, in all seriousness, okay.
Yeah.
I will give him the benefit, but you got to put it in the statement. If he would have come out, okay, and said, all right, like if he would have come out and said, now he did mention it a little bit, but it wasn't a main reason, okay? If he would have come out and said that we are doing this because of further legitimate legal action that could be taken on Michigan, meaning Pete Thamel reported, okay, in reference to there being legal action on players that were hurt on the sign stealing scandal. Okay. If he would have made that a talking point and he would have said, I have to worry about the other, what would it be, 15 teams now because you got other ones coming into the league, other 15 teams coming in this league, I'd have been like, okay, I understand it. But he didn't say that. The number one thing he said he suspended Harbaugh on was because I need to collect more data. So
that's what he should have done. I don't disagree. I think that the action itself is the incorrect move and that he jumped to a conclusion, but I think that it was deliberate in his decision-making. I think that his intention was to appease the other teams, for them to say to them, I did what you wanted me to do. You wanted me to suspend him, knowing full well that Michigan was going to counter. They're going to win the lawsuit. They're going to win the lawsuit if this goes to court. And then eventually Michigan can't be upset because he walks scot-free. It's just a total lawyer political non-move is what I'm getting at, because it's not going to change the situation. Nothing negative or positive comes out of this.
Do you want to keep talking about signs? Type Y, and everybody's saying no. Okay. Well, is
he our new moderator? Is Real Ed?
I guess Real Ed Orgeron is our new moderator. We got a lot of games to get to, so
let's get to this. Yeah.
Speaking of Michigan and Penn State yesterday, Joe, listen. Penn State in the first quarter, okay, settled for 3. Okay, early in there. You tweeted this, and I thought it was spot on. Okay, so changing into the game here. Them settling for 3 and not going for 7 bit them in the ass. Okay? Then they had it 4th and inches, and they punted. I don't know why I continue to pick James Franklin in these big situations. They threw the ball 8 times, what did Michigan, for 60 yards, and they still won. How nuts is that?
It's ridiculous. By the way, firing Mike Yurcich, your offensive coordinator, who's actually been one of the better offensive coordinators in Penn State over the past couple of years, that has to be one of the lamest moves by James Franklin. I think that everybody kind of turned the page and has been so focused on Michigan. To do that after that game is just such a lame ass move, man. I get that you think that you have to do something after a bad offensive performance like that, and that in the 2 biggest games of the year, your offense hasn't shown up. But this isn't like Notre Dame's offense, man. That offense under Yurcich has been fine. It has put up some really good games. With freaking Sean Clifford, they've put up some pretty good games. I don't get that. And the whole offensive approach, the just general, not offensive approach, but the general coaching decisions throughout this game, more of the blame needs to fall on James Franklin's shoulders. He clearly did this to create some type of a diversion.
Well, look, and I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'm not going to completely agree with you. How many open receivers did Drew Other miss?
Too many.
He had some wide ass open dudes and blatantly missed them. Joey went 10 of 22 for 70 yards, right? Like, he had a horrible game. But here's the bigger thing for me. I thought Penn State defensively did enough to win this football game. But at some point, you got to realize, man, they're not going to throw the football. 27 straight runs. I feel like Harbaugh did that to take a slap in the Big Ten's face. Like, hey, man, this is Michigan. I am Michigan. We are Michigan, okay? I know that J.J. McCarthy was a part of the Heisman talk. He's not anymore to me.
No.
But the bottom line was, in the second half, Penn State got suffocated. They had 2 3-and-outs, Joe, in the second half, and then a turnover on downs. Michigan's defense, who came into the game the number 1 total defense in the country, just absolutely suffocated them. Now, I'll give them this. Michigan pushed those dudes around up front defensively. They are as good as a team that you'll see defensively. And we asked the question throughout the week, did we think that this team would be good enough? They hadn't really played anybody, but my God, it did not matter. They look really good on defense.
And I'll take that a step further. Their defensive line beat the hell up that Penn State front, and then their offensive line just completely took over this football game, man. They ran the ball, what was it, 15 straight times, something ridiculous like that.
27.
They just kept running the
Michigan
damn ball.
ran the ball 27 straight times.
That's insane. And the reason why they were able to accomplish that is because their offensive line is that good. My main takeaway from this game. And I said earlier, don't bet against a galvanized team. That is what it is. They are clearly motivated. Teams that find ways to stay motivated are going to keep winning football games. But Michigan is just so damn physical and violent on both sides of the football that they're going to run the table through the rest of the regular season. I do not think, and you countered this earlier, I really do not think that Ohio State can beat them. I get that they've got weapons on the outside and that Kyle McCord is going to be important for that game, but I don't know how after watching that game I can't sit here and say
his name's Marvin Harrison.
But I really think that pass rush is going to cause so many. That Ohio State offensive line has been fine, but they have not seen anything this bad that they're going to be dealing with this front for Michigan.
I think Marvin Harrison could be I don't think he's going to be the X factor in that game. I'm taking
if they can get the ball out. If they can get the ball out.
True. Now that game is at Michigan, okay, which will be a big deal in picking this game.
Yeah,
but we'll see. Michigan, though. Here's the thing, though. Why did they abandon J.J. McCarthy from throwing the football? Completely abandoned it. Joe, it's not like he was bad. He was 7 for 8. Okay, 6 for 8, wherever it was. All right. They completely abandoned it. Why?
Well, there was a point where he kind of was not limping, but I don't know if there was something injury-wise with him. I have no idea. That's just pure speculation. But my thing with that is I think that's more of a problem than that is a strength. I think it's a positive to sit here and say that you could put anybody back there and we're going to still kick your ass. But it is a problem that you feel like your quarterback is not good enough to throw the football and that you have to just go straight to your run game. To run the ball that many times in a row, that's concerning. That means you don't trust the kid. That doesn't mean that, you obviously, if someone's working, you're going to keep going to it. But there were situations where he could have thrown the football and they either ran it with him or they ran it with somebody else. They don't trust him. That maybe they don't, and it's not getting talked about.
Well, it is something. It's an ultimate slap in the face to Penn State to show you that we can run the ball 27 straight times and you're still going to lose. So, All right, let's do this because we've been doing this for a while. I have my shirt on, Joe. Look at it.
I didn't wear a home field today. I'll wear one tomorrow.
I have my home field apparel t-shirt on here. So let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field right quick. We got Georgia and Ole Miss that we're going to talk about next, Utah, Washington, and Missouri, Tennessee, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. Don't go anywhere. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
Stephen Holbrook with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Stephen, for sending us that. Elks 70 said they started throwing because Barnhart, that right tackle was getting his ass beat. He's an awful right tackle. Ohio State gonna smother them. Very, very possible could happen. He was getting beat like he stole something. But your boy Chop Robinson, or what's his last name?
It's Chop Robinson. Yeah,
all right, Chop Robinson. He was going off in that first half. You got to give him that. Okay, thank you, Alex, for the super chat. I do agree with you there. And everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. You know who else got smothered yesterday?
Ole Miss, baby. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Ole Miss and Georgia kicked it off in Athens last night. Joe, the one thing, and I thought you were so spot on when you tweeted this last night, this Georgia team is scary when they can run the football like this, and they ran it right down Ole Miss's throat. And it's not like Ole Miss has a great defense. They don't. But Carson Beck had a late first half turnover, but it didn't matter because Kendall Milton was going absolutely bananas. He had 9 carries, 127 yards, 14.1 yards per rush, 2 touchdowns. Edwards had 6 yards and 2 scores, and Carson Beck had another really good game. Defensively, they look good. Joe, on what was it? Was Monday or Wednesday? And Ole Miss fans attacked me for this. I came out and said that if you cannot convert on third down, Georgia is going to absolutely smoke you. Joe, they went 6 for 15 on third down, 2 for 4 on fourth down, 8 for 19 overall on conversion downs. You not being able to get past the 50% mark on third and fourth down conversions total, it's why you can't do that against Georgia. They will slaughter you if you can't stay on the field. You were able to do that with Quinshon Judkins in the first drive of the game. That's why you were able to go down and score. You can't beat Georgia if you're not converting on third down. I said, I know that this might not be simple, but if you don't get to the 60, 70% mark on third downs, they're going to kick your ass. Well, by God, here we are, and Georgia just absolutely rolling again. I know Ohio State fans are gonna hate me saying this. There is a number 1 team in the country, a new number 1 team in the country. How anybody cannot have Georgia at number 1, you're absolutely insane if you don't have them there. They are the best team right now to me in the country.
I jokingly tweeted this out. The committee is going to come out and have Georgia at number 3, and they're going to be like, "Well, Michigan had a really hard-fought battle against Penn State, so we're gonna move them up to 1, and we didn't want to move Ohio State back too far. So I think Georgia is going to look nice and good at 3. And they're going to try and find ways to discredit this Ole Miss win. Look, for me with Georgia, it's the same thing that I've been saying over the past few weeks. Don't let this team get healthy, man. This team is getting healthier and healthier. They just got I know we talked about Brock Bowers coming back and the importance of that, but Amarius Mims coming back is probably the most crucial thing for them because their offensive line has been strong. It's been consistent, but that kid is a first-round talent. That kid is a freakish talent, and he is a mauler. Having him back is only going to improve the run game, and we saw what they did yesterday. I tweeted this out, and I think that my thoughts on Georgia are pretty clear here. The way that they inflict attrition on their opponents is just at a completely different level. And they
beat the shit out of everybody.
It makes it so hard to keep up with them and to play with them. The first couple of drives, you're going to score. You're going to find ways to get down the field. It happened against Ole Miss, happened against Mizzou. It's happened in other games so far this year. But we watch the game go on, and the defensive line starts to convert early snaps into pressures, then into sacks. And the offensive line starts to convert 3-yard gains into 5-yard gains into 15-yard gains. They just keep body blow after body blow. They are so physical, similar to what we just talked about there with Michigan. If you have a physical football team in 2023, you're going to be very hard to beat. I do not see a path that Alabama can beat this football team. I really do think that Georgia, without a doubt, is the best team in the country, and there should be no debate.
I do see a path. I will admit, I do see a path. I'm not going to completely give them no credit that they can't upset them. But I think you hit the nail on the head here. They're getting healthy. Brock Bowers is back. Is a massive thing, but I don't think it really mattered. I think they can win with, as crazy as this is going to sound, Brock is amazing. They can win without him. Okay, like I still could see a scenario where they win it all without him. Felt like he was a decoy early, got some catches in there, but Ladd McConkey going off, okay? But the biggest thing for me in this game is really simple. Joe, Ole Miss pretty much got blanked in the second half. They scored 3 points. 4 of the 5 drives was either a turnover on downs or a punt. They suffocated them defensively. And it's not as if that Lane didn't – I thought Lane called a really good game. To be real with you, I thought – some of the things that he drew up, I was like, damn, Lane's in his bag. They just can't convert. Jackson Dart's all over the place. He's wild. That O-line was absolutely abused. Quinshon Judkins, man, credit to him. I know that he only had 75 yards. I know he had 2 scores. Okay, but he was running tough, getting 2, 3, 4 yards. It didn't matter because in the second half, Ole Miss got blanked. Kirby at halftime, I thought, said something really interesting. He's like, yeah, I don't like how we're just giving up easy stuff. I hate it. And my God, he must have said something in the locker room that sparked them.
Yeah.
Because they blanked Ole Miss. That's, Joe, what's crazy is that all we've heard about Georgia all year is they hadn't played nobody. Well, they've played 2 top 15 teams in back-to-back weeks and physically have dominated at times. Missouri, not so much, but Ole Miss for sure that they did. Obliterated them. Look, Joe, I just don't know. Unless Georgia is off their game, okay, which it can't happen. And I don't look, it's hard to win 3 straight natties. It rarely ever happens. It's only happened once.
Minnesota,
as the president said one time. Minnesota. Okay. Was it Minnesota? I felt like it was.
They threw up a graphic, and I think it was during the game. I think it was Minnesota from 1934 to 1936, which is insane. Insane.
Well, stuck now with PJ Fleck row the boat. Yeah. Look, I just don't know if there's anything that they do bad. I don't know if there's any unit on their team that's below average or average. I know that maybe you could say receivers, but Ladd McConkey, when he's healthy, nobody stops him. Brock Bowers, Thomas, all those dudes. Okay. Yeah. Like, I don't know if they're just the best overall team to me. I'm going to continue to say it. I just don't know. I think they're beatable. Don't get me wrong. I think you could still beat them.
Yes. I know it sounds like I'm like going completely gonzo over here saying that this team is the greatest thing that's ever stepped on the earth. Know that they're not the greatest college football team of all time. They're not even the best version, the best iteration of Georgia. Last year's Georgia team was arguably way better, but we're starting to see signs. The fact that I think a really good signal to me that this team is good is the fact that Jamon Dumas-Johnson, who is such an important piece to this defense in the middle, playing that Mike Backer role. I was a really big fan of evaluating him over the summer as a 2024 draft prospect, and they threw a freshman in there. And the fact that kid, who is a highly recruited player, who was somebody who was that next up guy, goes off and plays his ass off because, one, he's excited to be out there. He's playing with his boys. It looks like he's just out there having fun and hitting people. The fact that you see that from an underclassman make a performance like that is a sign to me that they are built to continue and go on another run and make it at the bare minimum. I will put on the table, if people want to disagree with me, make it to the national championship again, because they have the depth and because in every single position group, they're really strong. And I think Carson Beck, man, deserves the credit for the way that he has set this team up, because even with some deficiencies at receiver, as you talked about, that some people might argue, he still finds ways to set his guys up. Right. Right.
It might not be conventional on the way that you look at it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Joe, I say this about quarterbacks all the time. I think they had it exactly with Stetson Bennett a year ago. They might not look like the Marvin Harrisons or the Malik Neighbors of the world. Okay. Right. They might not look like that. But let me tell you something. They might as well call Ladd McConkey 7-Eleven, because that sumbitch is always open.
And Carson Beck keeps finding ways to set up his guys for success. Look at all the yak, man. Look at all the extra yards after the catch.
It's insane, dude. Yeah. It's insane. So here's the question that I would pose. Now, Georgia fans are going to kill me for this, but I'm going to ask the question. Is Carson Beck going to finally have a bad game? Because he hasn't. And I'm not saying it would be unprecedented, because I don't think that Bryce Young necessarily ever had like a really bad game. He's had some bad ones where he's completed only 50% of his passes. Carson Beck is not doing that. Like the interception, okay, I thought a good throw that got batted up in the air and was picked off. It was not on him, really.
Right.
Okay. But I look at him and think, Joe, that look, if you're not careful, he will light you up. He will light you up. And I think Mike Bobo's in his bag. I love the way that he calls plays.
I think that if Carson Beck does end up having a bad game,
It's
Yeah,
going
it
to be
would.
against Bama.
Right, and I know Bama fans think I'm, I'm the biggest hater in the world, and I think your
You are.
team's bad. And I've said this. I have said this. That defense is elite. It is top 3 minimum, one of the best defenses in college football for how well-rounded it is. So if Carson Beck has a bad game where he goes 50% and throws a pick or two and doesn't go over 250 yards passing, it's going to be against Alabama. It's going to be against Bama.
Well, they look phenomenal. Joe, 300 yards rushing, 300 yards passing.
Insane.
600 yards. And by the way, you know what's crazy?
What?
Still not enough yards at more than Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
Anyway, we're talking about this. We're talking about this. All right.
Yeah.
Washington and Utah. You want to get over to go a little out west here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Joe, did this game not go exactly the way that we thought it would go?
It played out exactly
the way that we thought it would play out. Like, if in case you missed our shows from last week, go listen to our show last week. This game played out exactly. Joe, I thought that Washington would be able to Utah would be able to move the football on them. That's how bad Washington is defensively. Speaking of these top tier teams, okay, in the country, I think Washington's the worst of them. Like, I think that they're I just don't know, Joe. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, who had a really tough game against Miami. Okay, and shout out to Emory Williams. What a dog.
Yeah,
okay?
He played well. It's tough that I buy a quick just moment of shade. It's so hilarious that Tyler Van Dyke doesn't even start, and they call upon him. He comes into the game
and he throws a pick,
and he still throws an interception. It is so goddamn funny that man is so prone to throwing interceptions that it only took him one drive in a football game to throw it. But continue what you were saying.
He was trying to make something happen. It was fourth down. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Okay,
I know. But on paper, it's hilarious.
It looks horrible. I just don't think Washington's good enough to win it all. Do I think that they could win the Pac-12 still? Yeah, I think they could beat Oregon and win the Pac-12. They get into the playoff, somebody is going to just absolutely obliterate that defense. They're just not well-rounded. The problem I had in this game, Joe, and I thought that it would be a little bit of the opposite. Utah could not run the football in Washington, and they abandoned it. They completely abandoned the run. The interception safety thing where the kid dropped the ball right before the end zone, as crazy as this sounds for Washington, completely turned the game against Utah. Completely. They did not, Joe, after that, did not score another point.
No, they couldn't move that's a huge, talk about arrogant and taken out of you as an offense to throw a pick six, not to be a pick six, and then to give up a safety. That's a huge, just completely took the air out of them.
The air out of them, suffocated them. They couldn't do it. And look, Bryson Barnes, I thought that he had to go over 250 to make this a game. He did, but he threw the two picks in there. Joe, he was their leading rusher. I did not see that coming. If they would have had any resemblance of a running game, they would have beat Washington.
Here's what I think, and I don't disagree with your take that they're not one of the national championship capable teams. I don't disagree with that. I think that there's 3 teams that have shown to me the most balance, maybe 4 teams that are ahead of them. But we can't knock Washington for the one simple fact that as deficient as they've been in some games and as bad as they've been in some games, they still have found ways to win in the most important matchups that they've had this season against Oregon, against Utah, and against USC.
Let me ask a very easy question that I don't want to yell and argue over.
Okay.
How many times can we come out here on Sundays and have that excuse?
But it's the same thing as TCU. And I think there's a reason why you don't like them. And there's a reason why I like them is because I was willing to have fun with it. and
if
be
they're
excited.
this year's TCU,
They're gonna be,
swear to
brother.
God.
They're going to be this year's TCU. Here's one thing I just want to elaborate on a point that you're talking about here. That the Utah abandons their run game.
It's so stupid from them.
But
So
that's what Washington positions teams to do. And that's why I think what makes Washington dangerous, that even if they're in a mismatch where, say they play Georgia or they play Michigan or they play Alabama, a team that many would expect them to lose to, they force teams to play their game, unlike any team in the country. And their game is fast break basketball. We're going to pass the ball up the court and we're going to score some points. They do something that no other team in the country is doing right now. Nobody. And I have seen on a weekly basis, every single time that they've played somebody, teams try to keep up with them and do that. In the biggest matchups that they've had, I know that they looked like shit against Arizona State and that they looked like shit against Stanford. But everyone tries to keep up with them by playing this fast, pass-happy offense like they're doing, and it doesn't work. That's what makes them dangerous. It's kind of like what Lincoln Riley did at Oklahoma. It's very similar. But I would argue that this is more offensively potent the way that they're doing it because they're more downfield aggressive. I still stand by it that they could get in as a 4 and maybe pull out an upset like TCU did last year.
Well, the number 1 seed, if they got it in 4, they'd have to upset Georgia.
That's a good point. That's probably not happening. So if they got like a 3 and they played Michigan,
and let me say this. Let me say this, okay? Because this is why these games matter. If they lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game on that Friday night, which I think me and you need to do a post-game show that Friday night.
I'm down for it.
Okay. If that happens, and let's just say Alabama upsets Georgia and wins the SEC, who's going to get left out? You going to leave out Texas, who beat the SEC champ?
Well, that's what completely.
Are you going to leave out Ohio State that could have a 1 loss? Are you going to leave out Michigan that would have a 1 loss? That's why these games, when you only win by 7 and your defense, Joe, Utah is the number 118 passing team in the country. They are 108 in total offense. They are abysmal. They've gotten a little better, sure. They are abysmal. And for you to allow in back-to-back weeks over 75 points is just it's insane. Joe, they're worse defensively, statistically, than teams like South Carolina almost. They're in the same realm as South Carolina. They're worse than LSU, that everybody's trashed because of Jaden Daniels. They're worse, right? And so you're going to have to convince me that if they were to lose to Oregon, they're not getting in. They got to win out. They're going to have to win out because if Texas wins out and Alabama does, I think there's no way you keep Texas out. None.
I think that if Washington wins out, they get in over Texas. I think that having
sure if they win out, but I'm saying if they were to lose to Oregon is the scenario I'm trying to paint here.
Yeah, I almost don't even want to try to wrap my brain around that situation because you would basically have 6 1-loss teams or something insane like that. If Georgia loses to Alabama,
if that scenario played out. If Texas went out, but no. Well, yeah.
Wait. Let me throw this out there. Because the winner of Michigan, Ohio State, there's going to be a 1-loss team. There's a 1-loss team there. There's a 1-loss Georgia, 1-loss Alabama, 1-loss Texas, 1-loss Washington, 1-loss Oregon, and we don't know what happens with Florida State, but they might be undefeated. There's like 8 teams that could get in right now, which is insane.
This is chaotic. A pair of teams are going to now look, here's probably the truth of it all. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen.
Someone's going to lay an egg this week. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, somebody's going to lay an egg. Who does Washington play?
Oh my God. Let's see who they play.
Yeah, let's see who does Washington play this week.
Of course, that's who you go right to.
I got to know.
They play Oregon State.
Oh shit!
They could lose to Oregon State.
Where's that game at? Don't tell me it's in Corvallis.
It's in Corvallis.
Oh shit! Washington's gonna get beat.
Wait, really quick. Who else?
And you know what? You know what's funny about that? Washington might have had the game plan laid out against them against Utah to how to beat them, and Oregon State can actually accomplish it.
There
Because
are
DJU
not.
is not worse than Bryson Barnes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's actually, by the way, there's not a lot of good games next week.
Yeah,
Not a
there's
lot of good
A lot
games.
of teams in the
Kansas
SEC
State.
play Rudy Poos.
Yeah. There's so few games for some reason on ESPN. They shoved all the Division II matchups in the top 25 scoreboard.
You know what's interesting? You know, I think Texas is on upset alert.
Texas is?
Yeah, Iowa State.
Dude, that offense took a plunge when Jonathan Brooks came out of the game.
Completely.
Plunge.
And tore his ACL.
Yeah, he's done. He's done for the year.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've been saying this for 3 weeks. I've been circling this Iowa State game for 3 weeks. Watch them blow them out.
Dude, wait. Actually, I needed to just I kind of was nodding my head at what you were saying. Iowa State's garbage.
Okay.
Iowa State is.
You know who else is garbage?
Tennessee.
Damn.
Is that where you're going with that?
You're starting to read my mind a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about that game really quickly, and then we'll get final thoughts and get out of here.
Okay.
Joe, in the beginning, or let me start over. In the 9-playing portion of the season, we came out with our list. We went full lists of our top teams in the SEC and Big Ten, and we broke them down by division, some of them. And my happy fat ass came out here and said that I'm picking Missouri to be number 2 in the SEC East. And I, like a dummy, I did not pick Missouri to win in Como. I didn't. I should have.
I don't know why.
They're probably going to be the second best team in the East. But here's the thing. Cody Schrader, what a performance. 205 yards on the ground, 116 yards through the air. He just obliterated. Now, Joe, that's not the biggest thing for me. You know what I took away from this game?
What?
My buddy was over here, and I looked at him. I'm like, dude, is it just me, or does Missouri feel like that they've had the ball all game? Joe, they had the ball for 39 minutes, 39 plus minutes in this game. Almost 40 minutes
insane.
Of control. It's insane. They went for 11 for 14 on third down. It was actually 39 minutes and 56 seconds. Okay. 11 of 17 on third down. Eli Drinkwitz said that he wanted revenge, and my God, did he get it?
I think that Eli Drinkwitz, and I was kind of alluding to this earlier, deserves credit for what he has done in this.
He was on the hot seat at the beginning of the year, Joe. He was on the hot seat.
Which is ridiculous. I think that if we look at the sample size of the recruiting that he's produced, he has brought in some fantastic football players. And Brady Cook's going to be out the door because he's a 5th year or whatever he is. But I've heard the Sam Horn kid, who was a highly recruited quarterback coming in, might be great. I'm sure that they could even be in the conversation for a bigger name transfer portal quarterback. This team is just, it's fun to watch. It's not like
fun to watch.
It's not like most of the SEC teams that we see on a year-to-year basis. It's kind of like what Tennessee was last year, where they can spread the field. They can put up a ton of points. They've got some really athletic receivers. They've got a quarterback who when he's on, and they play really, really well. I have to reiterate here, though, a point that I have had that has not been very well received, and I think was proven by the way that Tennessee played and the way that Ole Miss played. I have said this over and over again, Blake. Tennessee and Ole Miss were unjustifiably propped up after they played Alabama. They were, for no reason whatsoever, not having any positives to take away from their games this season. For some reason, they kept getting moved up in the rankings.
Well, they kept winning.
They kept winning, but against nobody. And that's what I'm getting at here, is that I don't know why with both of these teams we dove too deep in. We dove way too deep in. It's one thing to rank them highly because of the record, but to assume that they were going to play competitively with their opponents this weekend was just not on the table for me. I really didn't think that it was going to happen, and I said that in the previews that we did. The top 3 teams in the SEC, top 4 teams, after that, after LSU, there's a massive drop-off. There's a pretty massive drop-off. I don't think that these teams are as good as they usually are in that second tier of teams in the SEC.
Well, I do think that LSU would be third there because they beat Missouri. Okay. But here's the thing. I think the West is deeper than the East.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
From top to bottom. I mean, when you have arguably the third best team in the West, beating the second best team in the East, they have 5 teams. Joe, the SEC has 5 teams that are pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. I don't think the Big Ten does.
I don't
Let me say this. I think Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, all 3 of them beat Penn State. I think 2 of those teams beat.
I don't think Ole Miss beats Penn State. I don't think that that's the case.
Joe, they can't score.
But Ole Miss's defense can't stop anybody.
Sure, sounds good. They can't score. You know why? Drew Allar's missing wide ass open dudes. Did you see that PFF metric that he missed? 9 dudes, Joe, that were wide open. 9.
He didn't play great. But I don't think that it is a foregone conclusion to say that
conclusion.
See, I knew that we're never going to agree on that.
In reference to Missouri, Joe, let me tell you why they're fun to watch. Really fun to watch too. Cody Schrader. We talked about him a lot last week, dude. I'm going to tell you this. I know you're going to disagree. I'm a little biased here because I love watching him play. I think he's a top 5 back coming out
in the draft. No.
Name other backs better than him.
Bucky Irving. If Jonathan Brooks didn't get hurt, he would be up there. Raheem Sanders is Trey Benson.
I think he's better than overall than Raheem's.
Raheem Sanders is a better athlete. Raheem Sanders will have a much longer NFL career.
He's not. Can I tell you why?
Cody Schrader's just a guy. He's a really good football player. He played a great game, but he's just a guy.
Rocket Sanders is not a better overall prospect than Cody Schrader?
Why?
He can't catch the motherfucker.
He's still 240 pounds, and he's going to probably run in the low 4.5s.
And he's going to be like Eddie Lacy if he's not careful. He's going to eat himself out the league.
He's not fat though. He's built, man.
He's 252 right now.
He's built though. He's built like a linebacker.
I don't give a shit what he's built like. He can't. Cody Schrader is Alton Eckler.
He just is not nearly as athletic as a lot of other guys on other teams. Devin Neal is another one that I would go with. DJ Giddens, I go with.
He's running away from Georgia last week. What are we talking about here? What do you mean he's not?
He had good games, but I don't think that. And he's physical, and he's a great college back, Blake. But I think that there's a separation between him being a good college back and being an NFL prospect. I texted with some people that I trust because I had the same thought. I was like, where does he maybe fit? And they agreed with my sentiment that I think that he's more, more just a guy. He's going to be a day 3 pick.
In 2 years, when we're sitting here and he's top 10 in the league in rushing,
don't put that on him. Please don't put that on him.
All right, but look, in reference to this game, big time win in Como. I told you that this place gets spooky during the winter or during the fall. It was my number one thing. I was like, listen. Don't think you can waltz into Como and win. Como is a weird place to play. Their fans are rowdy, and Tennessee didn't have a chance. All right. Before we wrap it up here, I got one thing I got to say to you.
Wait, no. I got one thing to say to you before you give me your spiel. So I did watch LSU versus Florida. I watched parts of it, and I have to admit, I have to applaud Jaden Daniels' performance for putting up 600 yards. And at week 11, I think I've come to the point, Blake, where I'm willing to admit that in a year where no one is separated, there has not been a guy on one of the top teams that has done enough that I think that Jaden Daniels deserves the one that win the Heisman. But Blake, I don't think that he's going to win it. I don't think he's going to win it. I think that he deserves it after what he did. But we got to be honest with ourselves. They're going to pick somebody on one of the teams that's in the college football.
I don't think that they will.
They're just notorious for picking just really lame options.
Who?
The voters. I feel like that.
But who would they pick?
Penix, Nix, or Beck. I feel like they're going to end up just. Here's the thing: a lot of these voters start paying attention in the final couple weeks. I don't think a lot of them were watching LSU Florida, And I think a lot of them are probably watching all these big premier important games that Georgia is playing in, that Washington's playing in, and that Oregon's playing in. And I think a lot of them are going to pick those 3 guys.
Dude that had 600 yards of offense.
Look, I'm just pointing out the issues with the voting.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say this. Jaden Daniels has 4,000 yards of total offense. He leads in every statistical category. I don't think it's his fault that his defense is ass.
It's not. It's not. I'm willing to admit that. I'm willing to admit, and I the whole time, the whole season, I was negative about it.
I'm so proud of you.
Shut up. You're ruining this. I think that if he beat Alabama, I would have absolutely come to the table and said that he deserved to get it. But the problem was he got knocked out. But to turn around and put up 600 yards of offense,
here's the problem I would say about him getting knocked out. Of all the dudes that you mentioned that would be up at the podium, even though Jaden Daniels got out, he still had more yards and touchdowns last week than they did.
Yeah.
Right. And I do believe that the last 2 weeks, Joe, in the last 2 weeks, he's had 1,000 yards, total yards, 1,000. He's got 10 touchdowns almost. I think maybe it was 9. Okay. He's been insane. Like here's what does it for me. Okay. It's not that he has elite wide receivers on the outside. It's not necessarily all the yards that he's getting with the running. It's Joe. Did you see that 85-yard run that he had last night?
Yes.
That DB runs a 4.5-4.4, and he left him.
Yeah.
Like he left him. Okay. And so I just don't think that there's a dude in the country that so if he's got the same amount of numbers that Penix and Nix do throwing the football, Joe, he's going to have 1,000 yards rushing, double-digit touchdowns on the ground already. If you're that biased, okay, if you're that biased and you'd want to vote against him because of team losses, it is what it is. But he is the best player in the country.
I don't disagree with that. I think that it's very reminiscent to the year that Lamar Jackson won it. I think that you could pull up the performances. Now, Lamar Jackson, didn't he have like an 8 touchdown game or something insane like that?
Still, you know what he did. Do you know what he doesn't have? Can I tell you what he doesn't have?
What?
A ranked win.
Yeah, I don't think Lamar Jackson did. I think you're right. And Jaden Daniels has one. He's got 1 ranked win.
And the losses are on the road. And again, Joe, if I put up the splits of his home and road, you couldn't tell the difference. That's what no player ever has had 300 yards in the first half on Nick Saban ever.
I don't disagree with it anymore, man. I don't. I just feel like right now the national conference. Look at all these national pundits that put out these lists. Jaden Daniels is usually at 5 or lower.
Yeah,
that's where my concern is.
I think they're hosing you.
I feel like when Lamar Jackson won it, and when RG3 won it, they were both like at the top of the list.
Did you know that RG3 was 7th this time when he won it in the voting polls?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I went and looked that up today.
Wonder where Lamar Jackson was. That's probably the most comparable.
Number 1.
Right. He was number 1 and nobody thought twice.
No, because remember when he hurdled that dude against Syracuse?
Yes.
Yeah, and everybody.
It was over.
It was over. When he hurdled that dude, it was over. All right. Joe, it's been a really good show. I'm proud of you.
Shut up. Don't ruin this. Don't ruin this.
We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Y'all have a good night. Peace out, Girl Scouts.